If you're a veteran or know somebody's a veteran, you need to listen up. These are important facts that everyone needs to know if they've served in any sort of armed forces when it comes to real estate. It's going to save you a whole lot of money, it's going to prevent a whole lot of stress, and most importantly, it's going to get you in a home now instead of later. In the next 60 days after you watching this video, I promise you, if you do the things that I share with you in this episode, you will be in a home in the next 60 days. The first thing you need to do is prepare your credit and look at your credit. Go to Credit Karma or MyFICO or any of them. You can Google it, but you got to make sure your credit score is at least a 580. They're also going to verify your income. And listen, there's a difference between being pre-approved and approved. You just want to make sure you're approved. And believe me, my name's Wayne Turner. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've helped thousands of people buy and sell their homes. It has nothing to do with the house. You just want to make sure you're approved, and you want to make sure your credit score is over 580. How you do that is you pay minimum monthly payments on the lease debt, right? If you've got 4 or 5 credit cards, one's got a $300 balance, one's got a $1,300 balance, one's got a $2,000 balance. Pay minimum on all of them except for the lowest one, the one with the lowest balance. And you put as much as you can on that and pay that off. You want to get that paid off. The other thing you'll want to do is any credit limit that you have, if you've got a $1,000 credit limit, you want to make sure you have that below $300. That's a 30% rule. By having that below the 30% rule, it's going to spike your credit score up to get it past that 580. Once you're past 580, you're in like Flynn. Now, don't get me wrong, they're still going to verify your income, of course, look at your credit, they're going to look at your taxes, and they're going to make sure you're paying your taxes, you got a job, and you have money coming in and what's going out, and they can approve you based on how much money you have coming in versus how much you have going out. But once you're approved, you're approved. It's like having cash in your hand. They give you an approval letter, and you want to make sure that the real estate broker that you're working with submits any offer on any home for you with that piece of paper, because that paper tells a homeowner that you're a cash buyer when you're ready to close. Now, what's a good thing about closing on a VA loan and getting your VA eligibility, right? And I'll talk about DD-214s and a couple other more things here in just a second, but you don't have to pay private mortgage insurance. That's an insurance that you have to pay that the insurance company takes out on you in case you default on a loan. And that can run you hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis and tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan, even tens of thousands of dollars in 5, 7, 8, 10 years of living in the home. But you have to understand you don't pay that because the United States government insures the loan. And when they insure the loan, you don't have to pay private mortgage insurance. Now, you've probably heard people say you don't need any money to buy a home if you get a VA loan. You actually do need money. There's money that has to happen, and it's called closing costs. The good news is that the seller of any home can pay your closing cost. And those closing costs typically run about 3.5% of the loan amount. So if you're purchasing a home for, say, $300,000 and you're borrowing $300,000 because the insurance is there, it's insured, it's a VA loan, they're giving you $300,000, then your closing costs are going to run about 3.5% of that. The seller can pay all of that. All you'll need is maybe a $500 to $1,000 deposit, which is part of your down payment. And in addition to that, you want to make sure you get a home inspection on the property. I always advise anybody and everybody, when in doubt, just get the home inspected. It gives you peace of mind. That way you know if there's anything wrong with the property, you know that up front. The second important thing about a home inspection is if there's anything wrong with the property, you can give the list to the seller and say, hey, still want to buy your home, but you got broken windows, leaky faucet, there's a couple of tabs flipped up on the roof. They can fix those things. That way, once you close on that, even though it's an as-is sale, at least you know you have a little peace of mind that the home was inspected. Now, the fourth thing is your DD-214. You have to have your honorable discharge. They will not give you a VA loan if you have a dishonorable discharge. You have to show that you've served in the armed forces. Active duty or not, it does not matter. If you've served in the armed forces and you have your eligibility where you've been discharged from the military and you have that documentation, you can get a VA loan. So I always tell people to get a little bit ahead of the game to save a little time as far as getting the mortgage, because right now the interest rates are a little high. Once they drop them, you're going to have everybody and their brother coming out of the woodwork buying a home. So you want to make sure you get approved for a loan and get your DD-214 in order. Now, a question that you may have, and anybody should ask this question, it's a really good one, is what is the loan limit? How much can I borrow? There's actually not a loan limit. They'll assure up to $1 million, $2 million if that's what you want to do. You just have to find a lender that's willing to loan you the money. So there's no limit on your VA eligibility. It's just a matter of, can you afford what you want to purchase? Now this one's a good one and you may not be aware of it, but everybody's got to pay property taxes, right? I don't know of anywhere you don't have to pay property taxes. The home that you own, the land that you own, you got to pay city, county taxes, right? But here's what's really cool. If you're a veteran, you're a disabled veteran, you need to know that there's many, many counties around the country, many states, cities that offer deep discounts on your property taxes. So if you're looking to purchase a home, and I've sold many properties for people over the years and helped thousands of home buyers, veterans, they purchase a house and they're either fully or partial disabled and they have that documentation, they get huge discounts on their property taxes. So you'll always want to make sure if you have any sort of disability whatsoever, to give that to your county, your parish, so you can get a discount on those taxes. Now, as I mentioned, the loan is 100% insured. That means it is insured for the entire value of the home. You don't have to worry about private mortgage insurance, as I mentioned, and you also get a little bit lower interest rate just because you've served in the armed forces. But I always tell people, you have to understand that just because one person quotes you one rate, that doesn't mean it's set in stone. Every mortgage lender can charge whatever they want in reference, and it keeps it very competitive. So when in doubt, just check a couple of them. Make a phone call to them. Hey, I've got my DD 214. My credit score is in the 600s, 700s. What is your loan with no points and no origination fee? You have to tell them that. No point, no origination fee, no points. You're not paying or buying any rate down. You just want the flat rate today that if you bought a home, got a 100% loan, and the seller paid closing cost, what would the rate be? Now, number 8, I believe we're on number 8, is multifamily. A lot of people ask, Wayne, can I buy multifamily? Yes, you can buy a multiple family unit. You can buy a multifamily unit. You can buy a duplex. You can buy triplex, quadruplex. What I mean by that is you have to live in one side for at least a year before you can then rent out the unit that you're living in. So, for example, if you bought a duplex, you could buy a duplex and get a VA loan. They call this house hacking. I don't know, they come up with that term, I guess. But at the end of the day, people have been doing it for years. You can buy a duplex, triplex, quadruplex. You have to live in one side for at least 1 year. You can rent out the others. Now, what's really cool about that is whenever you buy a duplex, triplex, quadruplex, think about it. Most of the time, there are tenants in those units. So those deposits are transferred to you the day of closing. First month's rent transferred to you, they're covered, deposit, whatever it may be, it's transferred. And you have tenants automatically. So a lot of people think, well, Wayne, I gotta get tenants, I gotta do. No, 95% of the time when you buy something that's multifamily, you wanna look at, okay, who's living in what unit? And then what is the lease and the termination of the lease? 99% of those leases that you purchase, if you purchased a multifamily home with your VA loan, 100%, no money out of pocket, seller can pay your closing cost. It says in there that you can give anybody 30 days notice to vacate. And what you'll want to do is tell them, hey, call somebody like Wayne Turner, or look up this guy on the internet, or do a little research, because the last thing you want to do is just boot somebody to the street. But at the end of the day, you have to look out for your well-being. However, you also want to pass anything along. Listen, sharing is caring, and you win in life by helping others. Now, number 9, and this is a good one, is assumable loans. Can someone assume your loan? Yes, they can. So if you go to sell your property years down the road, they can assume your loan, and they do not have to be a veteran. You heard me correctly. They do not have to be a veteran or anybody like that. So if you have a VA loan, however, there's a caveat to that. So you have to know this, that if you have a VA loan on any home, any property, multifamily, whatever it may be, and somebody assumes your loan, how they assume your loan is they have to qualify for it financially, and they have to give you the equity. So if you bought a home for $300,000 and now you're selling it for $350,000, they have to give you cash equity in order to assume your loan. However, when they assume your loan, your VA eligibility stays with that property until they refinance it. So it makes it difficult for you to go buy another house using your VA eligibility if they've assumed your VA loan. Now, number 10 is the property condition. You have to understand that the property itself has to be in pretty good condition. It has to have appliances. It has to have air conditioning. It has to have heat. You have to have functioning items on the home to make it habitable. So you can't have distressed floors and holes kicked in walls and all of that. So it makes it really hard and difficult, if you will, to find a foreclosure when you're doing a VA loan. Most of the time, those homes have to be in pretty good shape. Now, a lot of homeowners are like, I don't want to sell it to a VA person, because they're like, well, I heard a buddy of mine at work. Well, you don't know how your buddy lived in his house or your friend lived in her house. I can tell you that I've closed on many of VA homes, and they're looking for things like chipping paint, They want to make sure that's not anywhere because it could have lead in it. Before 1978, paint was made with lead in it. They want to make sure no kids consume lead-based paint. So they're going to make you repaint that. Broken windows, they're going to make you fix those. Missing appliances, you got to have some sort of way to cook. So you got to have a stove. You don't have to have a refrigerator, don't have to have a dishwasher, but you got to understand that if it's missing appliances that should have been there, oftentimes that appraiser can say, hey, you need another appliance. So bottom line is, you got to make sure that it's in relatively good condition. And I always tell people when you're walking through around a foreclosure, just check, double check, and always triple check, get it inspected, do mold inspections and that sort of thing. Now, a little bonus is number 11, if you will, is townhomes and condos. You can buy townhouses, you can buy condos. However, there's a vast majority of those condos where they have to be approved. And what I mean by approved is you have to have more ownership than rentals. For example, if you have a place where there's 100 condos, and out of those 100 condos, 75 of those are owner occupied, you can get a VA loan. But if it's the flip side, for example, and you say 54% are rentals and the other 46% are people that own them, then you can't get a VA insured loan. So look, at the end of the day, I appreciate you watching the video. My name is Wayne Turner. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. My goal for every single episode is for you to learn something new and beneficial when it comes to real estate.